Senator Moncion. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank all of our three witnesses and the witnesses from previous sessions. You enlighten us when it comes to the situation in Quebec for allophones and anglophones in Quebec compared to francophones elsewhere in Canada. There are a lot of similarities between what the experiences in your province or for other minority communities in other provinces in Canada. So, Mr. Boris, when you talked about people who left Quebec, you talked about a loss of Anglophones or Francophones who left Quebec to go to other provinces. Is there data on why they left? Because what is important to know is, depending on the economic situation of our country, we know that at particular points in time, there's a lot of immigration because there are jobs available in other provinces which are not available in one's current province. And we are seeing right now that with the full employment rate, and we're actually needing more people in the labor force, in the marketplace. So all this to say, I would like to know if you have information on that, a bit more concrete numbers, for instance. Jack, do you want to go first? Please go ahead, Mr. Boris. So the big numbers used by economists, they look at the difference between employment opportunity and the pay, which is the best predictor of population transfers or movements between provinces. I'm not talking about international immigrants, but just Canadian citizens moving between different provinces. And they might think that we are going to go to the province where there's a better job opportunity at a higher pay. That is the best predictor for economists. But when you do a bit more qualitative studies, and we don't really have giant samples, but I did conduct a study, and I analyzed students of McGill University who were born in Quebec, and I compared these students. These were Anglophone students, and when we asked them, why do you want to leave Quebec? The first reason they gave was because they wanted to have a better employment opportunity outside Quebec. And some students were also saying that they had friends or family elsewhere in Canada. So socio-affective reasons also came into play. And a certain proportion, statistically realistic portion, they were saying that I feel less comfortable in Quebec as an Anglophone born in Quebec. So these were only Anglophones born in Quebec. Their parents were born in Quebec, and some were saying that they were feeling not as comfortable as they could be in a different province. So this was the priority sequence, if you will. When it comes to Francophones wishing to leave Quebec, it was primarily for employment opportunities, but there were also social and affective reasons. They did not have discrimination-related problems because they were the majority in Quebec. So mostly these two elements are the most important: a better salary, a better job, and reuniting with someone or a group that is socially and effectively important for them. And there's also the question of comfort. That is what I can say about the reasons as far as I know them. Thank you. It is interesting because this might also apply to other people who leave a province, for instance, leaving an Anglophone English-speaking province to go to another English-speaking province. At a certain point, it stops maybe being a question issue and turns more into an economic issue. Okay, my next question, and I think someone mentioned this, I don't really know who it was, but one of the three researchers. What motivates a person who has chosen Quebec as their immigration destination, regardless of the language? Because you talked about Spanish, or you talked about, or others talked about the Roxham Road and people coming in. So what makes people choose Quebec as their first point of entry, if you will? And you told us why people are leaving, but why would people choose Quebec in the first place and not the rest of Canada? I can go ahead and answer. Well, immigration is also about an attraction strategy. Quebec has a big footprint on the international immigration market. There are mechanisms for recruitment. There's a lot of promotion going on. And before recruiting, there is promotion. Quebec Days in Paris, Quebec Days in Bogota, Quebec Days in Marrakesh, in Rabat, in Asia, in India. Canada does the same. So the whole machinery, the promotion machinery and attraction work is in place. That's very important to attract immigrants. Maybe we're talking more about economic immigrants. The universities do the same thing. And at the same time, it's gotten a bit more complex with the role of employers.
We see employers much more present at the table. They will make requests and demands that we increase the amount of immigration, for example. So that is actually very important. It's a very important mechanism that needs to be understood. But of course, on the other side, you're talking about Roxham. I am studying Roxham Road, and I accompany a collective of Anglophone citizens in the Montérégie region and in Hemmingford. These are women who cross the border to help migrants come through this irregular road, but it is also seen as being an act of solidarity. There is so much going on in reality. I'm not so much in the statistics and the numbers. What's important to me is the lived experience. With regards to Francophone immigration in Quebec, the Anglophone reality in Quebec, there are many stakeholders who are doing a lot of work in order to welcome and help these people integrate Quebec when they choose to come to Quebec. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Mr. Jedi, I don't want to massacre your name, apologies. You talked about the two-way street for immigrants who arrive in Canada and who have certain expectations with regards to the countries that they are leaving and their host country. You've mentioned that they do not necessarily feel at home in the new society that they are integrating. If I, let's say, went to Portugal and left Canada, I might not have the same expectations as an immigrant, and I might not expect to have such a welcoming society that might want to recognize my rights and so on. Perhaps I'm wrong. I see your face and your head moving. I just want to hear what you think about this. What I said, it's possible that they don't feel at home, but that's not quite what I said. It is possible, given the laws and measures that are adopted, because sometimes the government appears to be excluding them. What I was trying to say is that immigration is a integration and adaptation process. It's not an immediate process of adaptation. It depends on the characteristics of the immigrant. That is why we have to recognize the diversity of these characteristics in the process of integration. So indeed it is adaptation, but it is also a process of adaptation for the host country, because they need to understand the needs of the immigrant and understand how to better welcome them, while also taking into consideration the diversity of all these immigrants. That's what I was talking about. And please allow me to shamelessly plug an organization who we have up on our website. It demonstrates that immigrants and non-immigrants, there is quite a bit of a gap. So we do see an economic gap, which takes into consideration all the socio-demographic factors. So it's like comparing apples with apples. So I think it's very interesting information for you. You can see here where economic integration works well and where it might not work as well in Canada. This is, of course, based on the idea that integration is a two-way street, and you have to see where these gaps are when you take an immigrant who has the same characteristics, for example, as a non-immigrant. So I invite you to take a look at that if you are able to.